Welcome to the Christmas special of the Briefcase of the Barn, episode 23, with me and Gary, a series of the Furious, the Curious show, where we talk about everything and anything in between. Merry Christmas, Gary.
Merry Christmas. It's Wednesday, Christmas Day, when people are listening to this.
Nice hat.
I know. Feels like, people don't take me serious anyways, but they for sure won't take me serious with this hat on. What does yours say?
Mine says, everyone is on the naughty list, and it's by John Calvin. Good old John Calvin. We were all sinners. That's why Christmas is good news.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
It reminds me, there was a church beside the church I went to growing up called Glad Tidings or High Road Academy. But it used to have a big sign that said Glad Tidings on it. And I remember my grandpa, so my dad's dad, he was over one time. I must have been like 10 or something else like that. And we would drive past that sign and he would say, "I love Dad's name."
Glad Tidings.
And I'm like, why do you like that name?
Did he speak a bit of English?
I think a tiny bit, but he could read that. Okay. But it always surprised me because I was like, I still grew up, that was a bad church because
it's Pentecostal.
And it wasn't our church. And so I was like kind of surprised by that. I'm like, why do you like Glad Tidings? And of course it comes from that verse in the Bible, which I'll read. And the angel said to them, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy, and that will be for all people." All right, and then King James Version says, "Good tidings of great joy."
Okay.
And so I was thinking about that a couple of years ago. It's a fact that it's a good tiding of great joy. It is good news. But if you're a Christian, you experience it as good news. And if you're not, you just experience it as news.
Just information.
Just information. It's not good. There's no appetite for it.
No.
Which I think is interesting. But yeah, I think it's good news.
Interesting. What's your Christmas plans?
I think we're with my sisters for dinner.
Okay.
For dinner, yeah. Otherwise, we're going to open gifts in the morning.
Okay.
It's our first Christmas together in 4 years, me and Nicole.
Is that a true story?
That's a true story.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that's pretty special.
It's really sad.
It's also it is sad. It is sad, but it's also just a gift that we're together now. We're really excited to celebrate it together. So
wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were together, and there was good times in between there too. But
totally. Every Christmas, you just really self-destruct.
Last
year
was,
do self-destruct around Christmas, eh? It is very emotional time for a lot of people. Me, it makes no difference, right? Every day's the same. Just
bullshit. Every day's the same.
Yeah, I don't differ. Like holidays, I can't stand holidays.
Yeah, okay, fair.
I hate the commercialization of holidays. The guy that has the shirt, it says, well, this is from the Santa Shuffle, for those that don't know.
What is the Santa
Shuffle? Those that are listening, and I'm always a listener. I never watch any podcast. The Santa Shuffle was a fundraiser for the Salvation Army in Chilliwack.
Okay.
Friends of ours are the captains there, and they do a 1 kilometer walk, 5 kilometer run. Somebody ran it in like 18 minutes or something crazy.
That's probably Julius.
Some guy was pretty fast. No, he wasn't competing. He would have been right up there with that dude. Anyways, so our real estate company, we sponsor it. And so I got the shirts. Me and my kids, we all went. It was hosing. Yeah, so I'm wearing that along with a, whatever this hat is, red hat.
It's awesome. Okay. How was your meeting earlier?
Good. I've been a busy real estate week. You could tell, right? I was like texting people on the way in here.
Yeah.
We normally record in the afternoon often. Today we're recording pretty late at night, past Kyle's bedtime. He doesn't function that well at night.
How was your staff Christmas party?
TNT staff Christmas party was great. Yeah, people had a good time. We went curling, eh? Did you hear that?
No.
Yeah, it's actually a great thing. People right away smirked or made some weird face when I said curling. But
who's people?
It's not an old, younger people look at it like an old person sport. But it's actually a high skill level. It's pretty hard. And it's something that you could do as you got older. So as long as you didn't fall on the ice and break a hip, but
that's the golf. You can do that when you get older too.
Yeah. Golf is great for that too. The guy that taught me golf said that as well. It's something that you could do into your old age. So,
and you put it on the notes here. So that was it. That was the special thing.
The staff Christmas party.
Oh, did you know if you slide sideways, you can see who made the note?
Oh, I did not know that. Show the camera. That's fascinating. That's wild. I did not know that. Cool. I didn't even know you could collaborate on a note on an Apple device until recently. Somebody on Twitter posted this whole thing that you could do on your Apple device cool things you could do with notes. And I'm
Okay,
like,
but you're getting close to like old age.
I am. I'm in the, now that I'm over 40, these iPhones are pretty hard. But yeah, we had a great staff party, amazing team of people, a lot of fun. And it's super humbling, especially because I interact with so many different groups of people and so many just people like throughout my day. It's fascinating if you look at the people that work for me and have worked for me, some don't anymore, but that have as a general, like almost all, especially right now, I would say like top notch, amazing people. Pretty humbling. Because literally your business is made up of the people that work for it. Like that's all you have. Like,
so that's interesting you say that, because it reminds me of something you told me last year that you've struggled in the past with, you said appreciating your own people.
Yeah. Well, they don't listen to the podcast, so they won't get this, but I mean, maybe we can send them the real. They for sure don't pay for the overtime. Like I had a couple of people in my office, like they just refuse. Like, good grief, and I gave you a raise.
Just the pride thing. Is that
it's a pride thing.
Is that Steph? Because you've made another note. It says Steph's cheapness, not paying for Patreon.
We're not going to say who her last name is. She's a very faithful listener, but she's so... Well, there was this thing I read today where it was like some guy posted about, what's frugal, what's cheap, right? And sorry, Steph, you're definitely on the cheap side. Your last name will remain unnamed to protect guilty parties, but wonderful lady, very generous in some ways, but when it comes to the almighty dollar, she's clinging to it pretty tightly. Okay. She's definitely not giving it to you and me, put it that way. She would say there's way needier people, right?
Fair enough.
She's not even here to defend herself, but
well, thanks for listening anyway, Steph.
Yeah, you don't need to pay. You don't need to go to the Patreon. It's good. There's you're fine.
Today's gonna be a good Patreon.
Kyle does say that I finally, there's a little bit of myself that comes through, because last week on the podcast, what did I say? Oh yeah, at the end of the podcast, it was all over.
Yeah.
How did I say it?
You said.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about
doing deals or something, or
something about making money. And all of a sudden Gary blurted out, "I just really, really like making money." I'm like, "Oh, that's the real Gary."
Yeah. Normally the whole like holier than thou. Yeah. Generous, humble. Anyways,
okay.
In the overtime, I get real.
Listener questions. We had a bunch that I missed the last episode, last recording. So we got 4 of them. We got one. I was listening to you tell the story about Paul Henderson, and then you stopped mid-sentence. Now I'm curious what happened. Don't think Gary noticed, though. He was in another world, or in his own world. So this was when you were pulling up the your letter after giving money to the truckers. And I was talking, and you were just on your phone in another world. You didn't hear what I was saying.
I read the whole thing. Yeah,
but I was telling a story that you weren't listening to.
Okay.
So back in this is 2018 or something. Paul Henderson is local. Paul, if you're listening, thanks for listening. He was a local reporter here, and very liberal, and on the other side of the aisle, that definitely I'm on. And so I was like, I want to engage with this guy. And so I sent him a letter in the mail, snail mail. So I said, hello, Paul. I've been following your journalism work for some time now, and I appreciate the work you do. I do not always agree with your viewpoint, but I believe it's very important to have journalism that keeps politicians, organizations, companies, and people accountable. Definitely true. I'm writing to you because my wife and I would like to have you over for dinner at our house. We would love to talk about a range of topics and share a meal with a local journalist. I also noticed on your Facebook page that you're somewhat of a foodie, so we'll make sure to make something special. I'm not sure if you're married or dating, but if you take up to the offer, if we were to ask...
Bring whoever. Bring your canine.
Yeah, bring your significant other. Does Tuesday, May 1st work? 6 o'clock for you.
That's awesome. 2018?
Yeah, something like that. I gave my number. And I didn't put a return address on there, but I gave him my phone number. Anyways, so he proceeded to take a picture of this and post it on Facebook. And this is what he said in his post. I'm not sure if this would end with a friendly conversation, a religious intervention, or an abduction with me handcuffed to your radiator in the basement. But this is by far the oddest missive I've ever received, oddest message I've ever received, 12 years reporting on Chilliwack. Why the objectively creepy letter with no return address? Medical assistance in dying in hospice story, question mark? BCTF human rights complaint on our famously homophobic school trustee Barry Neufeld? Or a part of the ARPA Reformed Christian Rights Organization campaign to indoctrinate the media and politicians? Am I reading too much into this, question mark? Dinner sounds good. Invited via mailed letter with no return address? Not so much. But then you could see actually at the bottom of his picture that I put my phone number there. And so people were commenting saying like, hey, he put his phone number there. We're like, what's the deal with the return address? And then he deleted the post. But I got a screenshot before he deleted it. So
that's awesome. That's gold.
But I genuinely wanted to talk to him. I was like...
I would totally talk to Paul too. So. He's obviously a hurting person.
Yeah, hurting
pretty vehement, pretty angry.
So that was question 1.
That was a great story.
Question 2.
You know what I thought the question was about? This is how much of a space cadet I am.
What?
Well, didn't I give away the greatest goal, Paul Henderson, the Paul Henderson who's 80 who scored.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's who you were thinking about.
That's what I was thinking. The minute you're like, oh, what Paul Henderson story is this, like from the marriage conference? Because he spoke at the marriage conference I was at. But anyways, second question.
Okay, question 2. You've both, I think, mentioned weekly marriage meetings before. Could you consider talking about these in more detail as one of your topics? I started marriage meetings. Actually did 2 different types of meetings. Dave Curry taught me to do a meeting every single day with my wife. Okay. Where you ask each other like 10 different questions every day, or 5 different questions, and kind of just share about your day. We did that for about a year, which was really nice, just connecting more when we were going through a tough time. But the marriage meeting that we do now is inspired by you, which we do on Sunday evenings, probably once a month. We should be doing more often, but we kind of skip on it. Okay. And we share one thing we liked about each other that week, one thing that we didn't like about each other, like a criticism or something. We go through our whole calendar together. Okay. And we look at our finances together. Okay. And then we sometimes pray together, sometimes not.
So if you don't do it every week, how do you know that you do it once a month? Or how do you pick when you do it if you're not scheduled on a certain day?
It's in the calendar for Sundays at 8 o'clock. Okay. It's just that sometimes we just skip on it.
We would probably almost never miss, mostly because if we started missing, I don't know if I'd ever do it again, because that's just my nature. Okay. And the thing is, when we do the compliments in the beginning, and if you look at that, and we could actually post the link, I'll send you the link. We could post it in here if people are watching.
What link?
The link to how to do a marriage meeting that's on their website. They have a whole video now on
whose website?
They just on Family Life Canada. They just created content on this. And I was at that meeting. I think that's
where you got the idea from.
Well, yes, like a year and a half, 2 years ago at a Family Life marriage conference. Okay. That Marie and I go to every year. But it was very much so at the end of you doing your compliments, you're supposed to ask, did I miss anything?
Did I miss any compliments?
Yeah.
And do you guys do it?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, and I often miss things.
What did Marie miss with you last week?
What did she miss? Oh, how helpful I am. I'm so helpful. I took out the garden. No, I'm not that helpful. I'm not that helpful. No, and when I am helpful, she appreciates it. But it's fascinating how it makes you just way more intentional, even throughout the week. If you are looking for ways that you're going to compliment your spouse, now you're looking for good things that they're doing. If you're constantly focused on your wife, hey, what is this now? I mean, if she's a real piece of work, I guess, and she's a savage, she's not doing anything for you, and it's horrible. I mean, hey, if you're in that spot, you probably need some other.
You can always probably find one good thing, though.
You can, and I mean, if you're a real piece of work and she hasn't left you, I mean, that's something to be grateful for.
So what do you guys all do? You guys start with that?
We start with that, and you don't want your marriage meeting to go on too long. Like they would say, never more than a half an hour. You'll have one spouse that just loves long meetings and the other one hates long meetings. Yeah. So, and vice versa. Like you don't want to be rushing through it. If you're the person that can't stand sitting there talking to your wife, it's like, hey, put up with it. 25 minutes of your week, not a big deal. And it's super connecting. And it's interesting. And I'm sure other couples are way better than I am. But for me, I struggle doing the right things a lot of the time. I struggle being intentional with my wife, right? So it's like we know that we are going to have that meeting. And then, we go over our calendar second. And then the third thing we normally do, finance is a great one. But I mean, that could just fall into the contentious category at the end. If there was concerns, it's more unless you're planning. But for us, our third thing we always do is plan for fun. And that's been super helpful because there again, I don't
for the coming week.
Anytime. Okay. So like if we're going to go on a summer holiday and we kind of know that in our marriage meeting, we wouldn't necessarily plan it then, but we would, and we would just plan responsibilities too. Who's doing what, kind of like that. But a lot of times we'll be like, hey, we should go on a summer holiday. What does that look like? And we'll just take the time to talk about it in that. Spring break's coming up. What are we going to do? Hey, what are we, and then when you're planning to do fun stuff together as a family, it's pretty encouraging. And I don't know if I feels like we've talked about this a lot on here, but maybe we've only mentioned it once or twice. But when you have a scheduled, the best part, there's lots of good things. The complimenting at the beginning is awesome. And it's not just criticism. It could just be challenges. It could be things that are frustrating. It could be very petty, like, hey, you leave crap on the floor. Or you talk with your food.
Okay, but what's your order now? So you start with compliments.
Compliments, go over the weekly calendar.
Yeah.
Marie has like the full pager, the Big Mother, and the phone's out with all the stuff. She has to have everything written down and on the phone and whatever, right? She spends usually an hour before our meeting, have her own meeting by herself to get herself straightened out so she can have the meeting with me. Which whatever, that's good, right? So she's very prepared. She's a real school teacher, right?
Gets scary half hour a week, so.
Yeah. Savage. There's always a hint of truth in the savageness, so that's the problem. She'll like that shot. That reminds me of the reel that you played a few episodes ago where the guy said, "You're doing it for you." Or the lady said, "You're doing it for you. You're not doing it for us and the kids." Like, she has that saved, ready to send to me at a moment. She's like, "I got that one saved." It's great content. True. And there's truth to that. It's, you don't get to keep,
compliments, go through the schedule.
Yeah. And then plan for fun. And then the end, you wrap it up with the, hey, what's an issue in our marriage, right?
Okay, something's been bugging you.
Yeah, something that's been bugging you. And it's fascinating. If you have to wait, you don't have to wait. But if you're wise, like a wise person doesn't bring up something they're upset about in the exact moment. That's just foolish. Yeah. It's not going to go well. Yeah. So if you wait, one of two things happens. A, you've really thought about it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you all of a sudden are like, okay, I've thought this through. I've thought of the reasons. I've thought of areas where, hey, I do the same thing. I can, buffer my criticism with, hey, I realize that sometimes I'm doing this too, but it really drives me crazy when you do it. And then on the other side, 80% of the things, of course, because this is human nature, are petty. They're not worth worrying about. And you are just being not gracious, short fused, and you just got to let it go.
For someone that doesn't like conflict or confrontation, do you find this part hard?
Yeah. And Marie's, that's been an issue. So she'll bring it up in the marriage meeting.
Oh, that you don't give
criticism. How come every time you say there's nothing wrong? Of course this thing's wrong. Like, you're not that happy. You can't BS me. We're married. But no, I do bring stuff up, and it's like, it's the old saying that I've said many times, like, conflict is the pathway to intimacy. Yes. And if you want to have deep intimacy with somebody, not just your spouse, with anybody, with employees, with friends, you're going to you should have a bit of a rub once in a while. There should be that awkward moment of, I'm sharing something that potentially could go wrong. And that's the beauty of doing it in a marriage meeting in that schedule. If you have a reasonable, I think if your marriage was on the rocks, maybe it would look different. But like, for most people that are doing reasonably okay and not like in deep trauma and having some horrible things, when your spouse has the chance to bring up something too. So you're guarded. Like, doesn't mean you don't say what's wrong, but you just go into it with the understanding that, hey, you could be a savage and blast her with both barrels, but she gets to do the same thing. And there's a laundry list of things my wife come up with in areas that I'm falling short or doing the wrong thing. So I think it's pretty awesome. And it's been really, really good for us.
So how long have you been doing it now?
Over a year. Okay. And mostly, I would say, Marie could say better than I could. I'd be curious to know exactly why she feels it's so great, but I think it's just a great connecting time. It's a time where we both know that we're going to have each other's, she gets...
And afterwards, your vertical desires go horizontal, or what?
No, we just stay vertical. We just dance. Just dance in the kitchen. Oh, dear. Old joke.
Yeah.
Is that the end of the marriage meeting?
I think that's a good answer. I would say to anybody considering doing it, like, the first couple, 3, 4, 5 times doing it, it's going to feel awkward and weird, and
not. Because there's literally a written program for it. You can just go through there's even a book. I've given the book to people.
Yeah, but I just know there's a lot of people that try things, and after one time it didn't go perfect, so they're like, oh shit, it didn't work for me. I'm like, no,
it's really important.
Just do it.
It's really important.
Commit to it for a while, and you'll probably get a lot of benefit from it. So
yeah. And if someone that's listening to this has experience, love to hear it.
Yes.
Love to hear it.
And on that note, keep sending in questions and thoughts, whatever else like that, we'll answer them. So, okay, another question. I'm surrounded by men who can justify sacrificing just about anything for work. That would be my question for the show. How can I convince my husband he's addicted to work? I don't think you can.
No, I don't think you can either.
You can.
Man, that was a hopeless answer. That was really sad.
No, I think it's the truth.
It's a personal journey.
It reminded me of a verse I read. I wish I had it ready now. I read it a couple of weeks ago. Was that the unbelieving husband is sanctified by his believing wife?
Yeah, or even just somebody that, like, lots of people that are Christians are working too much, right? Like, I would fall in that camp too. Yeah. I think that there's been a lot of times where I've just justified it.
Prayer.
Yeah, pray.
But it reminded me of
there we go. So can I back up?
Yeah.
Sorry, no, you go ahead. I'll remember my thought. I apologize.
Something that Curry told Nicole about a year ago, and said, try love Kyle as hard as you can and see what happens. And it did make a huge difference. Now, that is not the be all end all.
And it won't work sometimes.
And it won't work sometimes. And it could be that nothing changes at all. But
nothing is reciprocated.
I think
but often it does.
Often it does. And working on yourself is the only thing you can really do. Like, you can't change your significant other. Marriage meetings are good because you can give criticisms, whatever. But like, you can only really work on yourself. And the more awesome someone is, it's really hard to be a jerk to someone that's super awesome. Now, that's really hard because sometimes you're just like in a really tough position, or you're actually not being respected at all, or whatever, all those other things. I think that's definitely happening.
Yeah, it's definitely a loaded question.
So it's really complicated, I think. Yeah. But I think, being open, go for counseling. I mean, a lot of guys won't even do that. So
I guess my question is, and that's an interesting, because I brought that up with somebody the other day, that I feel really desperately a couple that needed counseling, and I brought it up with the one spouse, and I'm like, well, will they go? And it was like, no, I don't think so. But I guess I always wonder, like, hey, if somebody says they really love somebody, like, if you get, and that's where I was going to go with this, if somebody could implement the marriage meeting first, now maybe the person won't even do that. But if you could say, hey, it's really important to me that we try do this, and you create this healthy space where there's this conversation, and hey, maybe the husband says, no, I wouldn't mind being at home more, but like, whenever I'm home, I'm getting nagged, or whenever, I'm just throwing hypotheticals out there or whatever, or mostly like with the workaholism thing, if it's a Dutch person, they just are driven, and they're trying to make money and build an empire. So, I mean, there's probably no excuse, right? In my case, it's like, I have to consciously choose the right thing, which is spending time with my family. But
I think everyone has that. Everyone has things where they have to
just be something else. It might not be work, but you're totally right. You're totally right.
But also, I mean, you go for counseling just by yourself and get advice from your counselor, like talk to your pastor about it. Like,
the most insightful thing you said was that the only thing you can change is working on your own stuff. Yeah. And I mean, people don't, you know what, it's not the answer we're looking for, because we feel like if the other person would just do this better, then I'd be happier. And of course there is some of that, and some people are being horribly mistreated. So like I say, it's a loaded question without knowing everything, but
yes,
I do feel like a lot of people are so busy focused on the shortcomings or the lack thereof in their partner. And it's like, well, there's a lot of things that we can just work on internally that will help. And people notice that, even people that are busy. I mean, maybe not, but a lot of times it's like, wow.
And it also reminds me of that guy that I talked to a couple months ago now, I guess, that I shared on the podcast, that he started praying every day for 20 minutes a day.
The Oregon guy.
Because he just wanted to get this job really badly, and it started changing everything in his life. Like, I think we underestimate the power of prayer, which actually brings me to the show sponsor. But like, if you're spending 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll get to that, you'll appreciate it. But if you spend 5 or 10 minutes a day praying for your spouse, which I think we should all do anyway, and I don't do it that long, but like, I would almost want to say like 100% sure that it'll make a significant difference if you do that consistently. Like, we don't live just in a 3D world, but it's a spiritual world. God is real.
Yeah, you tell him you're praying for him.
Yeah.
Say like, hey, I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
My wife prays for me quite a bit.
But instead of the show sponsor, what I wanted to do today was I wanted to ask everyone that listens to this to take some time this week or today to pray for Owen Kattenberg.
Amen.
So he's you know the story better, but it's your buddy Rick's son. Mm-hmm. He's a 6-year-old, and maybe share with his diagnosis.
Yeah, I'll butcher the name, so I won't try to say it, but he has cancer in his head, and it's super serious. And like his dad said, barring divine intervention, it does not look good. So that's what we were praying for. We're praying for a miracle, and God is the great healer. So if you're a prayer and you believe in the power of prayer, pray for that boy. Pray for his parents and his extended family. And
hit pause for a second and pray. Like, I more and more really believe in prayer. Yeah. That like, it's a real God, and miracles do happen. And it doesn't mean that this is now like he's going to get healed now. We don't know, obviously, but his family needs it. He needs it. It's Christmas today. And obviously Christmas looks different this year for them.
Life carries on for everybody, but it's really sad. Yeah. So, thanks, Kyle. Man, I did not know where you're going with that.
Owen Kattenberg.
Yeah.
Pray for him. Okay, one more listener question.
Can we do it in the overtime or not? Can we answer it in the overtime, the listener question, or not?
Yeah, it's about masturbation, so sounds good.
Okay, let's do that. And let's talk about, we have big news today. Now, this is old news for anybody listening, so it'll be fascinating to hear this in hindsight. But probably the biggest political event in my life happened today in Canadian politics, where the finance...
In your life, did you just say?
Yeah, I think so. It's a really big deal.
It's that big. Okay.
It's that big. Have you read the letter that she wrote?
No.
You got to read the letter.
Okay.
So Chrystia Freeland, and if you're an American, I don't know if any Americans listen to this thing or from other countries, but we have a finance minister who's the deputy minister in Canada, right under the prime minister, second in command. Ironically, in Canada, there's only one dictator. That's the prime minister. It's always been like that. And it's not just because we have a real dictator in there now, even when conservative governments have been in. The prime minister, ironically, and I was taught this in social studies 11 by a great social studies teacher, but the prime minister has probably more power than the president does in the
way
US.
Way more.
Like they have everybody whipped. They have the whole party toeing the line. Nobody's,
That's why I like the American system better, because they have way less power. And it's way more checked with the 4 forms of government. But
I don't like that.
I digress.
I don't like that. I personally like our model, and I know my brother and I have a bet, right? I've told you this, that we have a bet who's going to be prime minister first. So
I'll beat you both.
I would prefer that it would just stay how it is in case I do get in power. But anyways.
That'd be scary.
Could you imagine? Supreme dictator. Anyways, Chrystia Freeland, finance minister, was set to prepare to give her fall economic update today in the House of Commons. And at the exact moment, basically, when she was supposed to come out, and at the exact moment that somebody else gave their resignation, she gave her resignation, saying that she was basically, and there's a whole bunch of backstory here with a lady, I forget her name, Philpott, another great cabinet minister, Jody Raymond Wilson, who wrote a book called Indian in the Cabinet. My wife's read it. It's one of her, just an amazing book. I'm going to read it now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal book. Just skewers our great supreme leader, mostly because he's such a virtue signaler. It's one thing if you run over women, but if you act like you are the greatest supporter of, wouldn't even know what a female.
He's a chronic liar.
Narcissist, controlling psychopath. But anyways, that was pretty derogatory. But he definitely does not treat these ladies well. And this lady
or anybody else.
or anybody else. But this lady has been his
right hand.
Right hand. Very. I think a lot of us would say not that competent.
Hand,
I would say not that competent. But when somebody like Chrystia Freeland says, hey, we've gone and we've spent too much and we've gone too far, we're in deep trouble. And it all stems, and we hardly touched on it, but I've been lighting my hair on fire ever since, about the $250 check that was supposed to come to every working person that was making less than $150,000 a year. Now that was not going to come anyways. And I think for sure it's not coming now, but it wasn't going to pass because nobody would support it.
Yeah.
The NDP wanted the Liberal Party to even give up. The
HST, PST thing did pass.
That did go through, so that's happening. Total nightmare. Some companies aren't even bother implementing it. I think it's going to save about $4 or $5 per Canadian. The problem is that adds up to over $1 billion. So it's like, we're going to say, hey, we're going to add on $1 billion in long-term debt so we can all save $4. No, just keep the $4. Let's keep the federal deficit down.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, they did come out with the statement today. The news, the whole world was afire in the political spectrum of kind of how upset, how crazy it was. He didn't show his face to my knowledge. Now, I didn't watch the news tonight or whatever, but
what did she say in her letter?
Basically that he had tried to say she was no longer going to be the cap. He was just going to shuffle her into a new role because she refused to toe his line. And it's interesting because he had the same thing with Bill Murneau, who was the finance minister, who is a way more conservative version of finance than Chrystia Freeland is. And his chief of staff, I think it was his chief of staff, wrote a scathing review on Justin Trudeau as well today on the prime minister. So Bill Murneau's in hindsight now that this had come out. Everybody gets brave at the end, right? It's fascinating how everybody pulls out the knives when the person's finally drowning. I did read somewhere today too that he's considering
stepping down now.
Oh, I'm sure he's considering it every day, but
I doubt it actually will.
I doubt it. So
so how do you think this works internally? Do you think he just is running a one-man show? Do you think his like he has this a few of his people pushing his buttons and saying this is what you should be doing? He's not that smart, is he?
Oh, I think the actual control piece and the decision making, even for example, the idea to give out the checks is a completely Trudeau idea. They did not call an economist, not even a liberal economist. They didn't call any economist to ask if that was a good idea. It's super inflationary. It was just buy votes. People hate us. How will people like us? We'll give them money. People are pretty dumb. And people are pretty dumb. In 2021, he got elected with a minority government.
That's part of it.
I blame the media for that. When you call an election...
I blame the media for that.
No.
The media pushes that guy as the hero.
They do.
If they were honest, he would not have been elected once.
They do, but
he's a drama teacher.
He is a drama teacher. Yeah, he's creating the drama. You got to give him credit.
He's doing a good job.
He's doing a good job.
He should get an A+ in that category.
Yeah, but anyways, I find it fascinating. I'm a total political junkie, And I will be very curious by the time this comes out. Has he resigned? Has he stepped down? And so the other interesting thing is she didn't resign as an MP or anything, right? Like she just stepped out of cabinet.
Yeah.
So it's as if she's pulling, like she's always just kind of been there taking the crap and wearing everything that he's put on her. And now she's doing this. It's like she's just priming herself up to run against him when he finally says, hey, I'm not going to be the leader going into the next election. Or eventually the entire caucus, like with the entire Liberal Party, all the members revolt and say, hey, we've had enough, you are done, which they can do. They can do that.
I mean, they were talking about it already like a month ago.
Yeah.
So.
Well, 30 or 40 of them have written a letter, but there's quite a few of them. So pretty interesting. Anyways.
I mean, and Jagmeet Singh was like calling for his resignation today. And I'm like, Jagmeet, you can call the flipping election now.
Yeah.
So how it works for the Americans is that there's 3 big parties. There's actually 4 parties. There's a Quebec party, which is basically a separatist party. They want to peace out, which I'd be okay with. Then you have the Conservatives, which aren't really conservatives except for fiscally. Then you have the Liberals, and then you have the NDP, which is basically like Ocasio-Cortez.
Liberals on steroids.
And so that leader, Jagmeet Singh, he could call an election if they like had the majority of seats, basically. But
he can force it at any time, but he has not because he wanted his pension.
Yes.
And he would not have got elected back in. And so he waited, he's stalling it until he's served enough days. There's an exact amount of days that they have to have served before they get their pension, which is for life. And it's costing us a lot of money. I forget the number that it was.
There's a Shark Tank guy that offered him like $10 million to like just take it now and just call the election and just say like,
Mr. Wonderful?
No, another one.
Okay.
That said, I'll pay your pension. Just call the election. Okay. So anyways, that's it for today. We are going to get into overtime. Thank you very much for listening. Always appreciate it. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Only if you want to, as Gary says.
No pressure. No pressure.
If we're going to edit overtime. Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas.
Have a great Christmas with your families.
And we'll see you guys on New Year's. Cheers.